Hi, I'm Nick Davis, and we're back at the Central New York Marketplace Virtual Showcase, and I'm here with my good friend and high school high school classmate. Thank you, classmate Don Massenzio, who's a history writer. And okay, Don, could you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from? Of course, I know you're from here. What are your hobbies other than writing?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I was born and grew up in Syracuse, and then 25 years ago, after a couple of really bad winters, I had the good sense to move down to Florida, where I am now, where we're stuck in the house during the current situation. But hobbies other than writing. So I work about 50 hours a week still at a regular job, but I like to record and play music, and luckily. I've got a setup to do that during this time stuck in the house. So that's keeping me sane a little bit. And of course, I like to hang out with my daughter. She likes to bake and she likes to get me to help her, which is code for me cleaning up the kitchen while she bakes.
Yeah, you have a nice music room there. I see. I have one too at home, so I have a few keyboards myself and I play.
Yep.
You know
Yep.
that. And
Yep.
okay, what is your latest book? What's it about, and where can we find it?
So the latest book that I wrote, it's really four novellas that are kind of linked together. It's called Congo.com, and it's about a big technology mail order streaming video kind of company named after a big river, um, similar to Amazon. And the four stories are about different aspects of that business and how things could really go wrong. There's a story about a dating app that they have where a disgruntled employee figures out how to turn the cameras on people during their compromising positions and starts blackmailing people with that. There's another one about an Apple Watch Fitbit kind of a device that you install, but when you put it on your wrist, it injects some little nanobots into your bloodstream, and it's supposed to make you exercise more, but it has different side effects on some people. And all of these stories kind of tie together in the very last story to show kind of the head of the company and how he's got some evil plots to basically take over the world. It was a fun story to write, and I had interviewed for a job with Amazon, and that's kind of what inspired me to write it.
Yeah, yeah, I like those kind
Yep.
of.
And it's on
I
Amazon, of
like it
course,
myself.
selling it there.
Yeah. Um, what's your next project going to be?
So, my wife and daughter and I went on a trip to Italy about a year and a half ago, and we are, my Frank Rosani series of books about a private detective who's an Italian American. I'm writing a story of his that takes place in Italy, where he has to go to Italy and to some of the places that we went to, and solve a mystery. And I took a lot of notes while I was over there, took a lot of pictures, bought some books, and this is probably going to be the most researched book that I've written because it's a place I'm not entirely familiar with, but I've been there, and I'm writing it from my memories and the notes that I took while I was over there. So I'm working on it now. Hopefully it's going to be out in the next 3 or 4 months or so.
Okay. What authors influenced you to write?
A big influence for many years is Stephen King, and not so much, I mean, he writes scary books. There's no doubt. When I read it was one of the few books where I had to leave the lights on while I was reading it. Besides a reading light, I had to have all the other lights on, so it was pretty scary. But it's the way he does character development. And the other thing that I like about him is that, you'll read one of his books, but you'll recognize elements from another book. Like you might have a character or a setting or something that was in another book, and if you read his stuff, you pick up on that. And I try to do that in my own books. And another author that I've been influenced by is Jonathan Kellerman. He's not as famous as Stephen King, but he writes detective novels from the perspective of, he's actually a psychologist in real life, and the main character in his detective books is a psychologist that helps out a police detective. So they're pretty interesting books.
Do you have a favorite author?
Um, you know, it really varies. There's some indie authors that I really like. There's a guy named C.S. Boyack who writes some really great books. I think he lives in Arkansas, and he writes some really great stuff. I read all of his stuff. I've really gotten into reading Hugh Howey's books. He started out as an indie author as well, and then of course Stephen King, as I mentioned, and you know, John Grisham and the mainstream authors. I like to read their stuff just to see what's selling a lot of books out there.
What's the biggest challenge you face as an author?
You know, I think it's time. You know, as I mentioned, I'm working, you know, 50 to 60 hours a week. I was traveling every week, and my time in the hotel late at night was when I did a lot of my writing. But now I'm home all the time, and you would think that I would have more time for writing, but it ends up being more time for work. And I don't get to write nearly as much as I want to, but I'm trying to be a little disciplined on the weekend and get some writing in on the weekends.
How do you respond to negative reviews?
You know, it's interesting. I haven't had a lot of them, luckily, but I had one that really sent me over the edge. You know, it was my second or third book, you know, and I'm on like book 11 now, but it was my second or third one, and this person on Amazon just left a 1-star review that said boring. And when I looked at, you know, because you can look at what other things the person had reviewed, they had given like 5-star reviews to a couple of gardening books and hadn't read any other fiction or anything like that, and
Yeah.
picked my book to say boring. So I wrote this long response, and then right before I was going to hit send, I deleted it because I figured, you know, if this person gets excited over gardening books, then you know, their life is already headed in a direction that may not be that exciting. So I don't need to pile on. I just let it go.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a new author?
You know, just keep writing as much as you can and get other people to read it. You know, when I first started writing, I was 50 when I put out my first book, and I was scared to let anyone else read it, and I figured my wife was going to be the person who would be the most honest with me, and she's not a big reader, but I gave her a draft of, you know, the first 10 chapters or so of my first book, and she really liked it, and it taught me that there's someone out there that will enjoy reading your writing, and the big challenge is to stick to it, finish a book, and get it published. You know, we have so many easy ways to get books published these days that if you put it out there, there will be people who read your books and who will like them, and that's the encouragement you need. Once you get that first positive review or you get that feedback, it helps you stick to it. So, you know, don't hide your stuff away. Put it out there. Don't be afraid.
Do you design your own book covers, or does somebody do it before you?
You know, I started out having somebody else design them, and the last 2 book covers I designed myself, and I really had a lot of fun doing it. Like the Congo.com book that I mentioned, I took like a little picture that represented each story and put them on a background, and when I put the title in, it looked really cool, and I got some of the most positive feedback on that book cover that I have on all of them. So I think from here on out, I might design my own. Why not?
How do you market your books?
You know, I started out paying for ads on Facebook and paying for ads on Goodreads and going to author shows and that kind of thing. And I think when you're starting out and you've only got a couple of books, that's the thing to do. But now that I've been writing for a few years, and I've got 10 books out there and I've got audio books. I think having my website and having a mailing list is the way that I like to advertise the most now. And I think I get the most benefit out of it. You know, I have a blog, and when I release a new book, a lot of my fellow bloggers that are also indie authors spread the word. And I think I've gotten better sales. You know, I think the trick is to have more books out there, because people, when they like an author, they tend to read everything that they've written. And if you just have 1 or 2 books out there, you know, they're going to forget about you before your next book comes out. So it's good to have a lot of books out there, and market your stuff that you wrote early, you know, because there's always new readers coming along.
How long does it usually take you to write a book?
You know, it depends. When I was laid off last year, it took me like 3 months to write a book because I didn't have much else to do. But when I'm working, you know, it could take 6 to 8 months of writing, and then, you know, another month or so of editing, and then getting the cover together and everything. So I would say, you know, somewhere around 8 to 9 months to get a book done.
What famous person would you like to meet
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. You know, I think when I think back, I'm a little bit of a history buff, and especially Civil War history. And Abraham Lincoln is somebody who's always intrigued me a little bit, but I'd kind of like to meet him and Jefferson Davis together and see if they really had as many differences as the people in the country did back then. I have a feeling that they were a lot more similar to each other, and were just doing what the people in their areas wanted them to do. And it would just be an interesting conversation, I think.
today? Yeah, I was lucky enough to meet one of my icons back in January, William Shatner. And
You know,
that was neat.
funny that you mentioned him. I have tickets for MegaCon here in Florida, and it was supposed to be in 2 weeks, and they postponed it to June, and I'm hoping it's still going to happen. But William Shatner is going to be there, and he's somebody I'd really like to meet.
Yeah, he's
I
a
think
nice
that would be
guy.
cool.
I didn't get to talk to him long, but he was very nice.
Yep.
Um, okay, where do we find your books? Where are they located?
Well, of course, they're on Amazon. If you search for my name out there on Amazon, you'll find my author page and you'll find all of the books. But they're also on Barnes and Noble, and they're on, you know, other bookstore sites. You'll find them on Apple Books, on Google Books, and you know, you can also go to my website, which is just donmassenzio.com, and I've got links to purchase all of my books. I found a way, which is really cool. If you've got people from other countries that are looking at your website, you can create a universal link for Amazon, and if they click on it, it'll take them to the Amazon store in whatever country they live in, and they can buy your books there.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Don, for joining us. Don Massenzio,
Oh, you're
mystery
welcome.
writer. And we're going to go back to the Central New York Writers Showcase. And our next author is going to be Adam Cornell. He'll be here at 2 o'clock. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Yeah, you're welcome.